Hello and welcome to The Pulse. This afternoon, Ghana takes delivery of more than $600 million from the IMF to address the debt and financial crisis facing the country. But how will that affect you? Join us today as we hold a town hall on the deal and conditionalities. Also today, we build up to the Kumewu by-election in the Ashanti region as the four candidates step up their push to represent the people. And we bring back our special report capturing how Ghanaians are now embracing tattoos. Are there any health implications? We find out in our special feature. We've got details of these plus more here on The Pulse with me, Bernice Abu-Baidoo Lansah. Please stay with us. I'm grateful that you can make time to join us. We are live on DSTV channel 421, GoTV channel 144, and on your digital television, also online at myjoyonline.com. Now, just 2 days ago, Ghana clinched a $3 billion deal with the International Monetary Fund. The money is to help deal with the country's debt and financial crisis, pay for balance of payments. Now, disbursements of the fund gets underway today, with the Bank of Ghana receiving more than $600 million. But all that has wide-ranging implications for the Ghanaian economy, businesses, and individuals, you and me. So how much of an impact will this have on us? This afternoon, we have experts here to help us understand. Before that, here's a report capturing how the conditionalities and how they affect you.
Last few months have seen multiple upward adjustments in utility tariffs. The PURC's justification for the increment has been the depreciation of the Ghana cedi, high inflation, and other factors influencing the high cost of operations of the utility companies. But according to an IMF country report, these increments were part of prior actions Ghana needed to undertake to secure the $3 billion program. The agreement also noted that there will be additional quarterly tariff adjustments throughout 2023 to help reduce the cost recovery gap and limit this year's shortfall to around 2.7% of GDP. The agreement also advises government to maintain modest tariff adjustments and slight improvement in debt recovery to help reduce the sector's shortfall to 1.7% of GDP by 2026. This means that we may be experiencing sustained marginal upward adjustment of utility tariffs between now and end of the IMF program in 2026. Consequently, the PURC announced an 18.36% increase in electricity and natural gas tariffs for all consumer groups following its review of the second quarter of 2023, effective June 1, 2023. Government is additionally being urged to renegotiate the take-or-pay agreement with the IPPs, reforming subsidies to reduce revenue shortfalls, among others. Per the demand stated in the IMF document, prices of petroleum products may also experience marginal increases should government fully withdraw all subsidies on these products and adjust the taxes. The IMF is also asking government to limit hiring and wage increments, allocation to statutory funds, and reprioritization of capital expenditure is to be implemented as well.
So that was a brief report capturing how the IMF deal is likely going to affect you as a Ghanaian and all you need to know about it, basically. Here's what we want you to do. Join us with your views, just like these Ghanaians we chanced on the streets of Accra.
By looking at the current cost of living, just opposing it to my average income, it is not something to write home about. Now, looking at the current inflation rate in January 2022 was around 13%. Currently, inflation rate is over 50%. And so it means that I'll have to pay about 30-something% more of what I used to pay in January 2022. Now, I have to pay over 30-something% more. And if my salary have not increased between that period, it means that I am making, a lot of losses. Now, looking at the current increase in utility bills, or water bill in particular, it means that I'm I have to also spend extra the amount I spend every month. So we are in a situation where salaries remain the same, but cost of living keeps on increasing. And so every month you realize that you always have a deficit at the end of the month.
If you look closely, you will see that everything they told us about the devil, that he gives you with the right hand, and then he give you the right hand and take you with the left hand. That's what is at play at this particular moment. Whenever there is an salary adjustment for the former sector, the next moment is preceded by series of taxes, series of cunning ways to take everything from you. For instance, assuming that you are given a salary increment of 30%, the next moment you are faced with electricity tariff adjustment upwardly, then that of water, then also another tax review being implemented by Parliament. So you will see that they want us to suffer, and we will continue to suffer, especially if we don't kick MPP out of government.
I'm not unemployed here looking for a job, but I hope soon I start a job here. It was around 100 cedis. That was the last bill I paid, 100 cedis. No, the meter is for the house. It's everyone living in the house, the tenant living in the house. Yeah, we all use the same meter. Since I'm not working and I'm not having a fixed salary, what I even earn is just a part-time something. It's gonna affect me because already there is light bill, which is even more expensive than the water bill and other expenses. And since I'm not working, I'm not even expecting any salary increment. It's because I can't live without the water, so no matter, I have to fix it into my budget and then see how best I pay for it. Yeah.
This is, for me, it is outrageous. Let me put it this way, excuse me to say, it's crazy, because already there's so much hardship. Adding this burden onto this tax or whatever increment onto what already we have been paying will be something that people cannot bear. And in fact, I'm also included. The wahala is just too much. It is so outrageous that they are going to increase tariffs on water and electricity. And it is something that the government must rethink about. I don't even know how to manage. I don't know from here, I don't know how I'm going to manage. Because whatever I'm taking home as pay, it's not even sufficing me and my family. Imagine 3,000 Ghana cedis. How am I going to even spend it? Food is high. The cost of food is now high. Transport. Now we are talking about electricity. We are talking about water. What are you saying?
So those were some of the views shared with us, especially on the current situation when it has to come to paying for utilities and the expectation of what this IMF deal will do to our economy. On Zoom, we've been joined by Isaac Kofi, data analyst here with our research desk. Hello, Kofi. Let's go straight to the point. What are the conditionalities of this IMF deal?
Right. So yesterday we had a very successful press conference where the IMF, country, rep for Ghana was present. The finance minister was also present, and you could get the sense that based on certain things that Stefan Ude said, you could see that the vulnerable in the society needs to be protected as far as this IMF deal is concerned. So the first conditionality is that there's going to be, tariff adjustment. And this is the reason why there's going to be tariff adjustment is simply because now, the central bank can no longer come in to give, the utility, companies subsidies and also fund their debt. So for instance, ECG is owing about, some $1.5 billion. They have to find ways and means to, fund this debt by themselves. How would they do it? The first thing probably is to increase or improve revenue generation or increase the tariff. So you heard some of the reasons why ECG is looking for another increase in tariff is because they're saying that if you look at what they started the year with in terms of the cedi to dollar ratio, it was around, they were projecting $1 to 10 cedis. Now you need about 12 cedis or 11 cedis. And so some of these things are, pushing them to request for upward adjustment. And one other thing is that there's going to be a freeze on the wage bill. We saw this happen in 2015 when we went to the IMF for our 16th program. This is the reason why, because the IMF program must make sure that governments achieve what we call fiscal consolidation. So they cannot accommodate a wage bill as big as, let's say, 440 billion or 60 billion Ghana cedis. And so there must be ways and means to make sure that there's a freeze on public sector employment. And, TUC, they are not happy with this because they feel that when they went to the negotiation table with government and then they agreed that 30% increase in base pay, one thing they told government was that government should help them to bring in fresh people into the sector. And government went to agree with this, they agree on this, and then the next time they are telling TUC that there's going to be a freeze on public sector. It means that there's not going to be employment into the public sector. So that's one. And then also there's going to be a 0% financing by the Bank of Ghana. It simply means that when we find ourselves in trouble or when there's supposed to be some sort of financing, Bank of Ghana cannot come in directly to come and help the finance ministry or to fund government expenditure. So 0% financing, there is no room for Bank of Ghana printing money to come and fund the government. So utility tariffs expected to go up, and some experts are even projecting that these adjustments is going to be every 3 months. But per the data we have, if we look at 2015 when we approached the IMF for our 16th program, although there were some tariff adjustments, they weren't every 3 months. I think they were about 2 the entire year, and tariffs were held constant in some instances. So we are hoping, that we don't see that 3 months projection that some experts are saying that we will see. But we also know that ECG, they requested for 148% in increase in tariff. They only got, I think, 37% the first instance. So gradually, you can see that PURC is adding up to the adjustments, and cumulatively we are hovering around 107% since 2021. So it simply means that most Ghanaians consume between 0 to 300 megawatt hours. So if you bought prepaid and it was around 50 cedis 2021, we should prepare that currently you'll be paying around 107 cedis. So that is what it means. It simply means the IMF simply means that governments can no longer come in to directly subsidize certain things. And IMF, they've been very, very clear and direct that government must find ways and means to protect the vulnerable. That is why they are telling governments you need to increase, the funding for LEAP. We know World Bank directly funds LEAP, but there's also some portion that is supposed to come from the central government. And then also they are telling governments that you need to pay attention to the health insurance, because with this whole tightening that's going to go around, people will also need health care. And when we talk about multi-dimensional poverty, it's education, health, and other things. So make sure you have, the school feeding program is active to help kids, so that they don't go through this tightening that we are going to see. Make sure that the NHIS is working properly so people can get proper health care. And then also find ways and means to pump more money into the LEAP program so that the very vulnerable who will be affected by this IMF program will be protected or given some sort of cushion.
Thank you very much. Kofi Ajay is our data analyst. Kofi, don't leave just yet. As and when we need some clarification on some important issues, we will reach out to you. But we've been joined now by economist Dr. Edu Sarkodie for expert view on this. Remember, this is a town hall discussion and your views are very welcome. And once the phone lines are open, I'll alert you so you can call us, share your thoughts, and even ask any questions that you may have for our expert. Now, good afternoon to you, Doc. I appreciate your time here on The Pulse. Kofi just ran through the conditionalities with us. 0% financing, tariff adjustment, a freeze on the wage bill, We have also some cushioning for vulnerable groups, obviously because the IMF anticipates the impact this program will create on the economy and general standard of living for people. But from your technical perspective, are you able to break it down further to let us know how this will affect us generally and as individuals? Hi, Doc. I think your device is muted. Can you kindly unmute so we can hear you? Hello, Doc. Hello, Dr. Sakadie. Hi, Doc. If you can hear me, your device is muted. So if you can work on that for us so we can hear you. Well, we've lost him there. But Kofi, in that earlier submission on the conditionalities, you made reference to that presser which was organized yesterday, and it was quite an interesting one, listening to the finance minister, listening to Stefan and the BOG governor. What for you will be the highlights, especially for Ghanaians to pay attention to in that presser?
Well, so I listened to Professor Peter Korte yesterday, and he said that the IMF program has a tendency, it has both the advantages and the disadvantages. But the disadvantages may only outweigh the advantages if we do not do our part of the bargain. Remember that if we have any conditionality or anything that will affect our economy, it's because this program belongs to us. We call it the Enhanced Domestic Program. It simply means that we try to do it here by our own self. We couldn't. That is why we now have a headmaster in our booth to supervise us. But if you're a Ghanaian and you are watching and you are listening and you are enjoying this town hall meeting, then you should know that right now Ghana finds itself in a very tight situation where we need, per the IMF's projection, we need close to $4.2 billion to survive this year alone. And mind you, the entire IMF program package is at $3 billion. But because we are under this program, we are going to get other funding from elsewhere, like the World Bank and other partners. So this year alone, IMF will be giving us $1.2 billion plus 530 million from the World Bank. So if you combine the two, it means we are going to get close to 2.5 billion from both the IMF and the World Bank. And it also means that government will have to also find ways and means to finance the gap of about 2.5 billion that will be left. And so our situation is that we currently need Forex to show up so many things. And so we are hoping that the IMF money that is coming, the first 600 million, is supposed to act as a balance of payment support so that, we can give, those who are going out to bring in refined crude, pharmaceuticals, and other things in. And then we also will not have a lot of pressure on the cedi. The cedi is performing quite well lately because if you compare relative to what is happening currently to what happened last year around this same time, this was a time that the cedi was moving from 12 cedis to 13 cedis to 15 cedis. It was a discrete movement. But currently, the adjustment or the depreciation has been very slow. And even if we can see some sort of irregular movement, ups and downs, and the cedi has really done really well if you compare this period to what happened last year. So the first tranche that we get from the IMF, it is supposed to help us support our balance of payments because already there's a deficit and we've depleted our external reserve to the extent that we can only survive on it for about 1 month or I think 2. And so the first 600 million, that's what's supposed to do. IMF will come in to review. And after that, if you meet some of the conditionalities, they will top up. And then also they will do the other reviews and get the additional funding.
Right, Kofi, let me just cross-check if we have Dr. Sakadie on now. Hello, Doc, can you hear me, please?
Yes, I can hear you. Good afternoon.
Hello, Doc.
Hi, I can hear you. Good
All right,
afternoon.
great. Sorry, initially we couldn't hear you. I was asking what your understanding of the impact of these conditionalities are on the Ghanaian. What should we brace ourselves for? We've been told that we should expect an increase in tariffs. We've already seen that even before the IMF presser came on. PRC had released a statement on the increment in electricity tariffs and then subsequently for water. Now we are yet to feel the impact of no employment in the public sector and zero financing from the Bank of Ghana. But generally, what should we brace ourselves for, businesses and individuals?
Well, first of all, I think that we should not overlook the positive impact and concentrate more on the negative impact. What this program is bringing to us is stability and structural policy reforms. You wouldn't want the exchange rate to rise to 15 or 20 again. You want it stable. And once it's stable, we are all going to benefit. We all saw last year, I think we made reference to it, when the city depreciated, how transport fares went up, how even the cocoa seller increased the price of cocoa and wachi and benku. This is not what we want. And I think this, the benefits outweigh the cost. Obviously, you are asking about the cost and how we should manage the cost. What we know, first of all, is the debt restructuring. Many Ghanaians have already taken the haircut. The banks have already taken it. They've lost some money through principal payment and through interest payment. Individual bondholders, some of them have also lost some money. So they've already paid the price. The other price that we have to pay, I don't want to see that even as a price in terms of revenue generation, because it's something we should be doing as a country.
Right.
I don't think that we should wait for IMF to come and tell us to raise our own internal revenue. If I track the growth rate of public debt and the growth rate of internal domestic revenue, total revenue, I got between 2006 and 2022, the public debt increased by 9,900%. Within the same period, the total revenue and grant increased by 2,800%. So clearly speaking, if you look at a graph or the trend analysis, you will see that as a country, we paid so much attention to borrowing than internal revenue generation. So I don't want to see this. It's because we don't have to increase taxes to overburden the same population that pays the tax. This is where the conversation might be. But in terms of generally raising revenue, I don't see anything wrong with it. Just that we should be careful as a country not to overburden the same people who pay the tax. There are tax leakages, there are tax exemptions, there are corrupt practices. Auditor General support is there. We must prosecute people. We must make sure that we leverage digitization to revenue generation. This is where the conversation must be. The other thing that you may also claim as a cost is the increment in utility utility bills. The position of the IMF, if you have been following them since the inception, has been that citizens must pay the economic price. In other words, they do not support subsidy. So if the electricity bill is 50, it must be 50. Don't reduce it.
Right.
Okay. Now, this is the position. And that is why if you are charging lower, they may want you to charge the right price, the right economic price. It is up to you as a government to take out the poor and the vulnerable, because in the same policy, whilst they are asking you to charge the right price, if it will happen by increment, you have to increase it. But within the same IMF policy, they are talking about social protection. So they may say charge the right price, but still protect the poor. So it is up to government to identify who are the vulnerable consumers of water, vulnerable consumers of electricity, and protect them and let the remaining citizens pay the right price. Wow. If they do this, I think that is a step in the right direction.
But it doesn't appear that is happening, and Kofi will help me on that, Kofi, because when I heard you explain the increments in tariffs to us, it was across the board, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for instance, there's a group that we have to protect, which we call the lifeline consumers.
Right.
They consume between 0 to, I think, 30 megawatt hour. But even within that group, tariff has actually increased. The same thing is still around 100% if you compare what the PRC is projecting or has proposed to 2021 levels. So at all levels, we've seen an increment in the tariffs, both at the lifeline level and then also the normal consumers.
But Kofi, specific to the IMF's request for vulnerable persons to be protected, help us understand what government is doing here is that it is increasing the LEAP grant, right? And also offering other support systems. So whereas they may not be excluded from the tariff increment or utility adjustment, they are receiving more in terms of grants and support for some of these social interventions.
Well, exactly. So the IMF is clear that you have to protect them. And in protecting them, you also have to make sure that these monies that you'll be injecting in the economy will not rather come back to you to cause inflation. That is why the program must be targeted at the right people. So if you are distributing lead grants to people who are vulnerable, it shouldn't go to those who are not vulnerable. And so the IMF would want you to target the program to the right people. And when you are dishing out the money that they will give to us, if it is for budget support, it should go for budget support. If it's for education, it should be used for education. If it's for health, it should be used for health. And we must account for everything that we do with that money. And so if you realize, the IMF have already planted someone in the Bank of Ghana and then also the Finance Ministry to coordinate affairs. So they will be supervising us to make sure that whatever grant that we will get will be used for the right purpose. And I'm sure most of these monies will be coming directly from the World Bank because they support the LEAP program a lot. And usually the government's quota to this program, we are not even able to disperse that money to the level that we are supposed to every year. It is the World Bank that has been supporting us, and they will be requesting for accountability. Public sector will be publishing more reports for accessibility and then also for us to review and analyze, and IMF will come back for feedback.
Stay with me, Doc and Kofi. We have our first caller. Hello, welcome to the Pulse. Let's hear you on the IMF conditionalities. What are your concerns or suggestions or questions?
Hello.
Hello, I can hear you. Joshua.
Yes. Yeah, this is Joshua from Jebila.
From Bimbila.
Jebila.
All right. Let's hear you, please, Joshua.
As a nation, I think we are where we are today as a result of bad leadership. This is the same government that told us as citizens that they are never going to IMF. And now we are where we are today as a result of the bad leadership of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and Bawumia. Now, how can we enroll on the IMF and there's going to be a decrease in wages, and then we are also going to have increments in tariffs. Now, how are we going to survive as a nation, as a country? How are we going to survive? Now, as it stands now, Ghana is very broke. Nothing is working. We don't have visionary leaders who can carry us forward. So I think with these conditionalities that comes as a result of enrollment on the IMF, I see it as a way of bringing more problems on the ordinary Ghanaian. And so, as we are about to enter or go into elections, I think as a people, this is not about speaking on issues with political colors, but I think that our eyes must open as Ghanaians and as citizens that going into the next election, we must vote for leaders and people who can handle the helm of affairs for us. Because all these conditionalities that have been lined up by the IMF team, there is no way it's going to help the ordinary Ghanaian, but rather bring in more problems to us.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. That's Joshua there from Jebila. If you have your thoughts to share as well, they're most welcome. The number to call 0302-211-691, 0302-211-691. If you also have any questions, we have Doc on the line with us, and Kofi is also still on. And Doc, this caller, again, is blaming government for bringing us to this point. I don't know what your view is, but we've heard from other economists and experts who believe that we could have done something earlier to avert the situation. In fact, there were calls for government to go to the IMF. Government said it wasn't going to. We had the finance minister emphatically state that. Much later, we saw the opposite. There are those who also suggest that this is just a systemic problem, considering the number of times we've been to the IMF and not being able to sustain our successes in the economy for a long time. It clearly shows that the problem may be systemic. Kofi references the issue of monitoring and supervision, and how the IMF has somebody in the Bank of Ghana and other places to monitor and ensure that we're doing the right things. We have, over the time, shown that we can do these things for ourselves. Are you confident in this particular IMF program? And do you believe that we have gotten to the point where we can, on our own, sustain the gains from this IMF program?
Yeah, I think if you read the letter which the government wrote to seek the IMF program, and you also read the response from the staff level agreement, and you also read the response from the IMF board, you get a sense that they all admit that Ghana had before the COVID and war, they had pre-COVID existing vulnerabilities. Now, the external shock, i.e. the COVID and the war, have just come to exacerbate the existing vulnerabilities. Okay. So it means that we had our own vulnerabilities, and then the war and the COVID exacerbated them. So that is admitted at all levels, that we can't blame everything on COVID and the war. We must pay attention to our vulnerabilities, and then also pay attention to the effect of COVID and the war. What are these vulnerabilities? You mentioned the structural challenges that we have. The fact that we are unable to produce most of the items we have in the country, we have to import them. Our import bill has been so huge. Even locally produced items, you need imported intermediate goods to even locally produce. The other one is the capital account challenge, where even though you export more than you import, as recorded since 2017, but the money doesn't stay here. Much of the money is repatriated because the Ghana government doesn't own greater part of it. Most of the gains from gold and oil, government share is around 20, maximum 30% in this thing. So over 70% goes into the hands of the foreign companies. So the capital account vulnerability is also key. And these things were not caused by COVID and the war. These were existing before COVID and war. Another issue is the public debt, where we're spending 33% of total revenue on interest payments alone. And this was 2018 figure before COVID and the war. So yes, there were challenges before these external shocks. But can we relegate the impact of the external shocks? No. COVID and the war greatly impacted negatively on our finances, and that must be admitted. In fact, one of the professors, Alegon here, did a research last year, and he concluded that the war alone accounted for 28% of the city depreciation only last year, 28% of the city depreciation. So you cannot also relegate or overlook the impact of the external shocks. And so there was a need for this IMF program. In fact, there was a need for it. As to whether we should have gone early or not, yes, I mean, there were calls that we should have gone early, but it wasn't too late. Ghana has been very lucky. I think the IMF, these Bretton Woods institutions, they are intentional about Ghana because we have gotten our program in record time. So if we had applied earlier and still not gotten it this time, what benefit would that be? And so at the end of the day, we have it in record time. And I think that we must be happy about that because without this program, my sister, things would have been worse.
Doc, please. Sorry to interject, Doc. We have a call on the line, and I wouldn't like to keep them waiting any longer. So, please, if you can, just hold on with your thoughts for me. I'll come back to you. Majid, thank you so much for staying. Majid is joining us from Doma. Let's hear you, Majid.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Majid. Majid, please go ahead. We can hear you loud and clear.
All right. I think these IMF conditionalities are only going to overburden the already suffering Ghanaians. Because if we are talking about economy is all about, making the people to stay good and then, but if we have gone to IMF, which we promised never to go, but unfortunately we are there now. And now the IMF is giving us conditionalities that will aggravate the situation. Then I don't know the essence of the loan that we are taking, because we are not taking that loan to overburden the citizens. So I think the government has to rethink and then do something, because this utility and tariff increment already we are paying enough. So if the government is to increase some of these things, I think we are going to die. So the government should rethink and then do something about it, because it's not easy. It's not easy nowadays.
But Majid, you understand that we have already signed on to this deal, right? And so it is what it is.
Yeah, but internally, we have to also do certain things at least to alleviate some of the problems that we are faced with.
And that's why even for the IMF to make provision for vulnerable groups, persons who are living in extreme poverty, and so the fund understands the impact that this will have on our general economy and our lives, but it's the price we have to pay, isn't it?
But I think that this is very, very upset, because if they are saying that they should also reduce the burden on the vulnerable people over there, and then they are increasing tariff, electricity tariff and the water tariff, then how are you now protecting the vulnerability or the vulnerable?
Right. Thank you so much, Majid, for sharing your thoughts with us. So, Doc, you can conclude on the submission you were making earlier, and then just chip in a bit on whether there is a possibility for an adjustment, because, I mean, from where I sit, the little I understand from the fund is that it is what it is until we exit, right? Is there room for any modifications like Majid is suggesting?
Yeah, so let me conclude on my point. So I was making a point that there is the need for a program without which things would have been worse than now. You wouldn't have wanted the exchange rate to depreciate or city to depreciate by 50%, 60%. By now, we will be talking about 20 cities to $1 by now, if we had not made a decision to go to the IMF. So do you want to buy dollar at 20 cities, or you want increment in tariffs? It's a choice that we have to make as Ghanaians. And so this program is bringing stability. The program is bringing funding. It's also bringing structural reforms. It's bringing policy reforms. It's exposing Ghana, giving us the access to the international community to do business. Already, World Bank has also come on board to support us. The investor confidence will be restored, and foreign investors, or even local investors, will be willing to do business with us. I just spoke with a friend of mine who works with TIPC, and he was telling me how investors have been so much interested in doing business with Ghana, even in the midst of our economic instability. And the understanding was that Ghana already has very strong political stability. We have good governance. All we need is to add on the macroeconomic stability, and we are good to go. And that's exactly what we are doing as a country. So it's a good news for us. Beyond the program, but the program is not going to last forever. It's not going to be with us forever. They're going to be with us for 3 years. In fact, let me talk about the payment. They are giving us just 20% of the payment now, and there's going to be a review, performance benchmark, reviewed. And if we meet the review, we meet the targets, then they release the other tranches. So we have to work for the remaining 80%. And it's for the next 3 years. And it's something the government must do. So it's not as if everything has ended. In fact, the actual work has begun. The IMF program in its totality is not even the end in itself. It's a means to an end. In other words, even when they leave, we should be disciplined as a country to follow the track and keep the pace, keep the stability that we have to grow our economy, to create jobs. Because what every person needs now is for the person to get the sustainable job that he's looking for, to be gainfully employed. And that's all we want. So let us leverage this stability that will be given to us by the fund. And then going forward, we must keep it as a country, be disciplined, no mismanagement, no embezzlement of funds, no corruption. We try as much as possible to raise our own internal revenue, to slow down borrowing, so that the debt service doesn't become a burden on us. And then lastly, on the issue of the tariffs, will there be adjustment? I think it's possible. The price you pay is usually determined by the cost of doing business. So I think your colleague who spoke first before me was really relating the adjustment to the cost of production. So once the cost of production is contained or reduced, definitely the positive impact will be on us. Now, it is a negative impact because the cost of production is high. If tomorrow the cost of production has reduced, I'm sure ECG and Ghana Water will be gracious enough on Ghanaians to, downwardly adjust or reduce the tariffs for us. So there's a possibility that with the stability that we're going to have, if the cost of production is reduced or even stabilized, it is very possible that it will trickle down into utility tariffs, not being changed or even a reduction of it. We have seen recently that trotro fares, I think GPRTU or so, they have advised their members to reduce trotro fares, to reduce taxi fares. And these are all part of the benefits that we are going to get from this program. And that's why I stated in my earlier remarks that we should not dwell so much on the negatives. Let us also talk more about the positives, the stability that we are going to get. If you're a business person, you wouldn't want to buy a dollar at 26.
Right.
Yeah. So even though you may be paying some 18% adjustment in tariffs now, but if you compare it without the IMF program, your city is depreciating, you are buying dollar at 20 cities, 25 cities. That's not what you want. So
all right, let's go to Tamale now. Stephanie is joining us from Tamale. Hello, Stephanie. Thank you so much for holding on. Please go ahead with your thoughts.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon.
Your cherished viewers. Please, I want to find out with the IMF bailout, the banks that the government have borrowed from, will they be paying the money back for them to pay their customers back? I have invested an amount with SIC Savings and Loans, Tamale branch, and the money has been locked up over a year now. I want to find out if this bailout will also help those banks to revive and start working again. That is my question. Because already we are overburdened, and if tariffs are going to be adjusted without this money being paid back to us, how do we buy pay water bills, buy electricity, pay school fees, and so on and so forth? That is my question, please. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much for asking your question, Stephanie. So the last we had, we understand that there's a certain stabilization fund that's being created to help banks. But to answer your question specifically, we would need to get a specific response from government. What we know also is that this first tranche of the IMF bailout is to help with balance of payments. In fact, the 3 billion we went for was to help in balance of payments. But we understand, as we are told by the experts, is that the ripple effect of this deal is the return of confidence in the system, which would translate into investors feeling confident to support, release money. And so, I mean, to answer your question directly, I cannot tell, but I know that there is a stabilization fund which is being created because of even the impact of the domestic debt exchange program on banks. So that'll be it from me. I don't know, Doc, if you have a response on Stephanie's question, whether the bailout will help receive the funds that have been locked up with different financial institutions since we entered the crisis.
I don't know whether the problem is coming from the bank itself or because of a general economic conditions. But let me answer in this way. Nobody will lose their money. If the bank is finding it difficult to repay you, I'm sure with time, they will be able to resource enough to pay all customers. So I don't think customers should panic. If you haven't received your funds, they will pay you. Again, the government is supporting them with their financial stability, and they are purposely going to tackle vulnerable banks. They're going to give it to banks that are really vulnerable, who cannot pay their customers. So no customer will lose their money.
Thank you, Doc. We have Mohammed from Adenta. Hello, Mohammed. Let's hear you, please.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, please, I want to pose a question to Doctor.
We are all ears, Mohammed.
Yeah, I think in Ghana we don't need only economic restructuring.
Hi, Mohammed. Can you speak up a bit? Can you speak up a bit, please?
I am saying that Ghana will also require the restructuring of the people, because if you are changing a system for the people, you need to train the people such that they will be able to accept the system before the system can work. Because I believe that Ghanaians should be taken through hectic education to re-engineer the minds of Ghanaians such that if government is having a policy, if it is a good policy or bad policy, people's minds should be engineered towards the acceptance of that before that policy can work. Because it's really very, 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 very difficult. And if government don't come out with hectic education to make sure that people accept and believe in whatever measures that are put in place, it is going to really be very, very difficult because things are very, very hard. The government has to come out and let the people understand why and what he is doing. And we look at the end benefits of whatever policy the government is coming to implement.
And so, Mohammed, your question is, because you said you wanted to ask Doc a question.
I am saying that since doctors, they are in the field of education, they have to emphasize the government said that Ghanaians need re-engineering. Personally, Ghanaians need re-engineering such that programs that are being introduced by government will be accepted or will be easily understood. So from farmer to the lecturer, everybody should be re-engineered to retake a position to understand whatever is going on before government can come out to implement policies that affect the very people that
So Mohammed, you're actually making a suggestion, right?
Yes, yes.
All right. I appreciate it.
They should re-engineer Ghanaians.
Thank you. When you say re-engineer Ghanaians, what do you mean exactly?
I mean education, to re-educate Ghanaians. In fact, you look at the whole system, it looks like Ghanaians should be re-educated from the market woman to farmer to doctors.
Re-educated on what exactly?
On just change mindset, the change of mindset. Because people think that they must get certain things for free. Okay. People think that things should be done this way. But if the government is coming with a policy as a result of the real issues that affect us, it's good our mindsets are changed. And this can only be done through education, to re-engineer our minds towards the realities on the ground.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us, Mohammed. Doc, I don't know what you think about his suggestion, but immediately I'm reminded of the concern about paying the economic value for utilities, for example. And this is a conversation we've had in times past about how, as a country, we have become so used to subsidies that it is almost always difficult for a lot of Ghanaians to pay the right amount for water or electricity. We've seen over time these companies, appeal to the PURC to say, this is what we need. And then we see some adjustment here and there. Sometimes not even half of what they request is granted. So, I mean, it all feeds into the conversation of our exit from the IMF deal. What are the real measures we must put in place to ensure that we don't go down this road again? Hello, Doc. Oh, too bad. We seem to have a challenge with Doc's line. He appears frozen there. But if you just joined the polls, today we are having a town hall, basically a discussion on the IMF conditionalities. We've broken the news about Ghana securing the deal. But what does it mean to you as an individual? Already we know that there are some tariff adjustments that will have to be made. Electricity is going up 1st June, water, same thing, and those are all part of the conditionalities. We also know that there is a freeze on employment in the public sector. Also, there's 0% financing. That means that if we find ourselves in a fix, the central bank cannot support government's budget in any way. Thankfully, the IMF makes provision for support for vulnerable groups, and so in there are some form of cushioning for persons who fall within the vulnerable group. All right, so we're getting interactive with you. The numbers to call 0302-211-691. Share your thoughts with us if you have any questions. Dr. Owusu Sarkodie is our man to help with those questions, give you answers. Yahya is calling us. Hello, let's hear you, please.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I wanted to ask Dr. Sarkodie a question.
Please go ahead.
I was watching him on another channel, and he was saying the reason why we went to the IMF can be kind of attributed to 3 problems. He said one was the internal problems, and the other one was the COVID-19, and the other one was the Russia-Ukraine war.
Okay.
I wanted to find out, has he run a model? And can he in any way tell us which percentage of the problem is contributed by COVID, which percentage is contributed by the Russia-Ukraine war, and which percentage was caused by our own internal problem?
All right. Doc has heard you. Doc, Yahya is asking a question about some reasons you gave on a different platform as to why Ghana is going to the IMF. He's just asking, on a scale, these 3 that you highlighted, our own internal problems, the COVID-19 pandemic, the Russian-Ukraine war. He wants to know in percentage terms, which of them is the largest contributor to our mess?
Well, first of all, I haven't seen a single model which has been run for the economy as a whole. But what we know is that in each sector, you can find the vulnerabilities differ from one sector to the other. So yes, before COVID and the war, I just mentioned to you that the public debt was growing faster than the domestic revenue or internal revenue, and it's a fact. I also mentioned to you that before the war and the COVID, our city was depreciating also due to the challenges in the capital account. We also had some financial management problems. And then the COVID increased the public debt. COVID actually grounded many economies in the world, and the government had to borrow. If you take a look at the effect on individuals like you and me, schools were closed, market women could not go to the market, church offers were asked to reduce the number of passengers, planes were grounded, etc., etc. And in fact, we even unfortunately lost the lives of some people. And then the war also came. War talked about the increase in food prices, energy prices, and that's also the reason for our city depreciation, because the import bill had gone higher than this. So I cannot have a simple answer to him to say 10% is from this, 20% is from that. What I can do is to go into details, what we call the micro level analysis, and tell you which sectors were more affected by what. And I've mentioned to you that food and energy prices in recent times were largely due to the war. And I think I mentioned again that the example I gave, that a professor in our department did his own research, and he came to the conclusion that 28% of the cedi depreciation last year came from the war, But of course, at that time, Ghana was recovering from COVID, and many economies in the world were recovering from COVID, and then the war hit. So it's not as if all happened at one time, and then you have to get the different percentage contributions. Most of them, the height came at different times. And so what I can say to answer your question is that at different levels, in different sectors of the economy, the internal problems, the COVID, and then the war impacted our economy so badly.
Right, we have our last caller. Hello, Jet.
Hello.
Hi, great to have you on the Pulse. Let's hear you, please.
Okay. According to my boss' submission, he made mention of the IMF money may be used to cushion some banks. I want to ask, is it possible that all banks can also be rejuvenated to start, especially if you talk about GM Bank, which was scattered? A lot of people were employed and were working over there, were laid out. Is it going to be a way out to make them survive or restarted again to make the country revamp into a better way? That's what I want to ask. Thank you.
Right. Doc, I believe you got the question from Jet.
Hello. Was he talking about the collapse banking?
No, I think he's talking about banks in general and whether, I think it's in relation to the question that Stephanie from Tamale asked about, whether there will be some support given to banks. And he's asking if it will be across the board, because I think that your answer suggested that there may be support for vulnerable banks. So he's just trying to understand. I mean, that's what I gleaned from what he asked. Too bad Doc is frozen on us again, technology not being our best friend today. But if you just joined us on the polls, what we've been trying to do is to understand, bring the issues or break them down to the barest minimum for you to get an understanding of what the conditions, the major ones especially, are for our signing on to the IMF deal. So basically what you need to know is that we have to pay more for utilities. You've seen that happening already with water and electricity. There is also a freeze on the wage bill, and which then means that there will be very little to no employment in the public sector. 0% financing. The Bank of Ghana cannot support government expenditure throughout the period. Also, there is some support for vulnerable groups, also the NHIS and all that. So, Doc, if you're back, you can attempt answering that question and give your concluding remarks. In your concluding remarks, I would like you to tell me what your confidence level is with regards to our ability to execute the social interventions targeted at persons within the vulnerable groups. My experience with the NHIS is nothing to write home about. I know people who walk into the hospital for very basic things and they're told they cannot access the NHIS. Our own health minister has had reason to complain about that. In terms of protecting the vulnerable, what are your thoughts about our ability to do so? You can share those concluding thoughts after answering the question by Jet.
So I was making a point that the Financial Stability Fund, which is expected to help the banks, the government expects up to $1 billion. Already, we have seen contributions from World Bank. I'm sure contributions will come from other international organizations and individuals into that fund. And because the government hasn't gotten all the money that they wanted or they want in the fund, the little they have, they will start with the most vulnerable. And that's how I understand it. So gradually, I think that every bank will be okay. And then the customers will also not be negatively affected. Everybody will get their funds, hopefully. Let me make a point on the zero financing from the Bank of Ghana. I think this was also requested, or was part of the program in 2015. And I think IFS, we did a research and wrote back to the government and the IMF that Ghana's economy at that time could not sustain or could not live on zero financing from the central bank. So, and they have brought the zero financing again. And I want to reiterate the point that they should consider, maybe after the first review, after the second review, they should reconsider the decision on the zero financing from the central bank. The last time we recommended 5%. This time around, I think we can, in terms of government can request for up to 3 or 5% central bank financing. Zero central bank financing, I'm not sure it will help us. Maybe within a short term, within this year, 2023, we may not, get beyond 0% financing, but beyond 2023 and 2024, I think they should relax that rule for us, for government to seek financing from the central bank. How confident am I? Well, I think that as Ghanaians, we have seen the difficulties that we've gone through. We have seen the effect of the cedi depreciation last year, and it's not something we want to experience again. And so all of us come on board with the government leading. We should discipline ourselves fiscal discipline, make sure that we are prudent, we are efficient in our financial management. Let's do the correct reporting and reduce the wastages, the corrupt practices in the financial system. If we do this, I think that we'll be able to sustain whatever gains that we have from the program and then transform our economy. The other one on social protection, yes, there's research to show that even the direct which you call the leave, sometimes it ends up in the pockets of those who do not need it. And so this check so that the real targeted people get what is needed. And so if we are disciplined again on that front, and we make sure that we coordinate items, there's proper coordination, there's proper supervision in NHIS, school feeding program, whatever, free SHS and all that. Let's identify the problems and deal with the problems and make sure that at the end of the day, every single Ghanaian benefits, and not the few people who will benefit at the expense of the many.
I'm grateful that you could join us this afternoon. That's Dr. Edu Owusu-Sarkodie. He is an economist. Much earlier, when we started the conversation, you heard from my colleague, Kofi J. He is a data analyst on our research desk, basically pointing out to us what the IMF conditionalities are. We also heard from you. Thank you so much for joining the conversation and sharing your thoughts with us. We are very grateful for that. But there's more on the IMF deal much later on the channel. Tomorrow, make a date with Evans Mensah on Newsfile, the IMF bailout, the conditions and the impact. Well, still to come here on the polls, we build up to the Kumewu by-election in the Ashanti region as the 4 candidates step up their push to represent the people. Welcome back to the polls on your election headquarters. I'm Bernice Abu-Baidoo Lansah. Now on Tuesday, eligible voters in Kumewu in the Ashanti region will have the opportunity to cast their ballots for a parliamentary candidate who replaced their MP Philip Baswa, who died recently. The NPP and NDC and 2 independent candidates are up for the contest. But as election day gets closer, the polls looks ahead to that contest. Nana Yaljima is on the beat.
The demise of Kumewu MP Philip Baswa necessitated a by-election to fill the vacant seats. In the 2020 parliamentary election, the deceased MP garnered over 14,000 votes, with the independent candidate Kwakudua making 11,698. The NDC candidate who came third, Bernard Opokumafo, could make 2,439 votes. These results are, however, being contested by the independent candidate.
But to us who voted and who are from this constituency, everybody knew that I won that election. And for that reason, I was bent on going to court to seek redress. Well, some movements went on and they came and apologized through the Omanyene. He's my grandfather. So when he called me, I obliged.
The independent candidate was once a member of the New Patriotic Party. He refused a call to reunite with the party after the 2020 general election. Mr. Dua explains.
So when they approached me that, hey, we want to know what you're going to do, they knew I was the right person to go. That's why they approached me in the first place. They should have asked me to go uncontested. And I told them that. I said, listen, if I contest with anybody, I will lose. Why? Because I don't have anybody to vote for me.
You don't have people in the polling stations to vote for you?
Exactly. Because they disqualified all my guys.
The NPP have since attacked his campaign, claiming the candidate is in bed with the opposition National Democratic Congress. Ashanti Regional Chairman of the NPP, Bernard Entwibo explains.
I have said no MPP, but why to say Judas is carrot? Say Kwakudia and indeed Judas is carrot. What are why why you come what you say?
He used to be a member of the NPP, but not anymore. He's a traitor. He can now be linked to the biblical Judas Iscariot. He is now in bed with the NDC. That is why his posters are green in color. The NDC knows they have no chance of winning the seat, so they are now relying on him.
Abroad didn't want to buy NDC no. Yabema obi ehu. NDC for no I rely on it. NDC for himself umunya 2,800 and something. It is this election, you know. Anya dia saka NDC for no person omoba. Na mom kwanya kwako hunu omo. Na omo Maniska so remember you kuma wuma na enko no ho because say MPP and this parliament in
the NPP has put up Ernest Yao Enim as candidate for the by-election. The candidates who are favored to win the seat have stepped up their campaign. The regional and national leadership of the New Patriotic Party are busy in the constituency, visiting almost all towns and villages in the enclave with their message. The independent candidate is, however, unfazed.
So we leave it to the people to decide whom they trust, whom they can trust, whom they think can deliver for them. And I'm doing it with my own money, with my own resources. So do you think if the government gives me something for developmental project within the constituency or the community, I'm going to blow it? No, I'll use it for that purpose. And let me tell you, I'm ready and willing to work with all the stakeholders.
The NPP is expected to climax its campaign with a rally on Sunday, where the President, Nana Akufo-Addo, is expected to be present. For Joy News, Nana Aljima, Kumeu.
Let's now take you to the constituency. Ohimin Teria is there for us. Hello, Ohimin. How is Kumewu gearing up for that big election on Tuesday? What have you been hearing from the people there who are ready to vote, and what have they been saying about the contestants?
For the elections in the Kumewu constituency, they are ready for the by-election. They are going to vote for when it comes to Tuesday's by-election. I must say, today, being Friday, has been a very busy day for all the aspirants, being the independent candidates, the New Patriotic and the National Democratic Congress. They are ramping up their campaign activities here. A while ago, the former President John Dramani Mahama addressed the residents of Bodomase here in Kumewu after a rest stop at Kumewu, where he also addressed the elections. In all his messages, he's been asking the electorate to at least change their voting pattern for once this time around and vote for the National Democratic Congress. He believes that all the developmental projects that are available in Kumewu constituency and Bodomase were done or carried out by the National Democratic Congress government. He mentioned the Kumewu Abubu Road, and he also mentioned the Kumewu Bobonsu Road, as well as the Kumewu Water Project, projects that were done by the NDC government. And he also mentioned the Kumewu District Hospital, which has been under construction. And he accused the NDP of dragging its feet in completing that project. He believes when the NDC is voted into power, the next NDC government will complete that particular project. So from here, we are moving from Bodomase to another community with a campaign team. But I've also been informed that the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Baumia, who will be leading the NPP charges here in Kumewu, will be arriving soon at Sechre. Sechre is just one of the constituencies at the entry point. So from there, he will continue to another community in the constituency before paying the courtesy call on the Kumewu Mahile. And so it's been a day of political campaigning activities here in the Kumewu constituency, all in the name of fighting for the attention of the electorate, who will be given the opportunity to vote for or choose their parliamentary representation here in the Kumewu constituency. So it's been a very busy day. Today is a market day at Bodomase. So for me, I would say it was a perfect time for all the political parties to be here. NPP left a while ago before the arrival of the former president. So all the candidates are taking advantage of every meeting, every gathering of the people to sell their candidates, to also sell their messages to the electorate in the Kumewu constituency.
And Ohiming, just for a bit of clarity, the Vice President, his visit is for what exactly? Is it to attend to other government or state matters, or he's there primarily to campaign for the MPP's candidate?
It's for the information I have picked from the NPP. It appears the Vice President is here purposely because of the by-election. He's here to campaign for the new patriotic party, because I've seen the itinerary. You call on the chiefs and the people, make special stops at some communities that are voted for, they call it settler community. So he'll be meeting all these communities as well as the chiefs and then the Muslim leaders as well. So it is structured in a way to campaign for the new patriotic party, because for instance, I was at Sechre to look at how the place has been set up, and at that point I saw the MPP parliamentary candidates posters and his paraphernalia all over the place. So it's an indication that the Vice President will not be campaigning for himself, but rather for the new patriotic party parliamentary candidate here. So the MPP is able to at least win the seat for the new patriotic party. So it's been a very busy day, and that is information I take from the MPP, that the Vice President perhaps is not here to campaign for himself, but also to campaign for the new patriotic party.
So just briefly, here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to run us through the candidates, who they are, and what the delegates have been telling you about them.
Yes, we have 4 candidates who are vying for the parliamentary slot here. One is Ernest Anim. Mr. Ernest Anim is a native of Bodomase, and he is battling it out with the NDC Akosia Mankwa, who I'm told is also a native of Bodomase. And then there's also there are 2 other independent candidates, 2 Kwakudias, whose issues have raised some eyebrows among the electorate here. They believe that it's only the Electoral Commission that can settle this issue, because the two Kwakudias, they are the last persons to appear on the ballot. The first Kwakudia is the man who contested the late MP, Philip Atabaswa, in 2020 elections and garnered over 11,000 votes as against 60,000 from the incumbent MP. And then there's another Kwakudia who I'm told hails from Bodomase. So the first Kwakudia is a native of Kumewu, and the second Kwakudia on the ballot is a native of Bodomase. It is interesting to note that almost half of the candidates are all natives of Bodomase. It tells you the political dynamics here. Bodomase is the second biggest town after Kumewu. So the candidates, one way or the other, will try to jostle for a vote from these big communities, and Bodomase is one of them. And so these are the candidates who are vying for Tuesday's by-election. But the electorates here in Kumewu are divided as to why the two Kwakudias' names appear on the ballot. They are the last to appear on the ballot. They appear in Kente cloth. Just that the first Kwakudia who contested the late MP, his Kente is actually, it comes with the color green, and then the second Kwakudia comes in the color red. Apart from these people who are vying, the information I have seen from the electorate is that the first Kwakudia, the man who contested the late MP, actually is very known, he's very popular, and he can be identified by many of the electorates here. But the second Kwakudia is perhaps not known in the constituency at all. Some are saying they haven't seen him campaign, they haven't seen most of his posters around. So they believe that perhaps he's been put there by some people in order to confuse the electorate. But for them, once they are able to depict the picture of their candidate, that's what perhaps will not affect their voting pattern on Tuesday.
And now, Heming, it's important that we create the background so it's understandable for people who don't get the dynamics in that constituency. This the first Kwakudia you speak about, who is in the Green Kente, he used to belong to the New Patriotic Party, right?
Yes, information I have taken is that he used to be a member of the NPP until 2020 when he decided to contest as an independent candidate. And since then, he's been a formidable force, a thorn in the flesh of the MPP in the constituency. So with all the candidates, if MPP is afraid of anybody, that should be the independent candidate who contested the MPP's candidate in 2020 and polled 11,000 votes as against 16,000 or so from the incumbent MP, who had then served as DCE for Secretary Kumewu when it was immediately carved out of the East district. So they believe that if for a new entrant to make that inroad in the Kumewu constituency, then he's a force to reckon with. And MPP is doing everything to win the seat back to back. Here I've been told that the campaign team of the MPP has been grouped into 6. They have zoned the entire constituency into 6. And we have the national chairman and all the national executives, the national organizer, and all the people, the big guns who matter in MPP, here to campaign for their candidates. And it's no wonder the vice president will also join forces here to also campaign for the candidates, because MPP thinks that if they blink an eye, they are likely to lose this seat, taking into consideration the number of votes won by the independent candidate in 2020 elections. And he is well known. He has his footings on the ground. Everywhere you go, his campaign is well structured. I have witnessed few of his campaign activities here in the constituency. And anywhere he moves, the crowd moves with him. So it's no wonder the MPP is paying so much attention to him. And the fact that if they want to win this seat back to back, it has to be on a clean sheet, and they want to avoid any defeat of that can be caused by the independent candidates here in the small constituency.
And finally, on Heming, this Kwakudia appears to be also quite popular on the other side, that is among persons who claim to have sympathy or be sympathizers of the National Democratic Congress, right?
Yes, I spoke to some NDC members, especially today in Kumawu. I saw them in NDC Panasinaria, dressed in NDC Panasinaria, and when I spoke to a couple of them, the information they gave me is that, yes, when it comes to the general elections, they vote for the NDC's presidential candidate. But for the parliamentary, they always prefer to vote for the independent candidate because they believe that MPP as a party has failed Kumawu constituency. And it's no wonder that John Mahama keeps drumming home the fact that all the developmental projects in the constituency has been led by the new National Democratic Congress, taking into consideration the Kumawu Water Project, the Kumawu Drobonsu Road, the Kumawu Agogo Road, and several other projects, including the district hospital that is under construction and being executed by NMS Infrastructure Limited.
Himing, we'll leave it here for now. That's all. Himing Teya joining us from Kumewu as campaigns begin to, fold up or come to an end. Looking forward to that by-election on Tuesday. We'll see what the difference of the presence of John Dramani Mahama and Vice President Dr. Bawumia will make in that. But you want to stay with us. We are your election headquarters, and we will bring you the very best of coverage with regards to that. Now, still on politics, Whole West MP Manuel Bedzra calls for a probe into branded vehicles bearing the image of Dr. Bawumia even before the presidential contest of the NPP begins. According to him, former President John Mahama's controversial 40 cedis allocated to delegates was donated openly as he did as a candidate in the Whole West constituency in a bid to promote transparency in political party financing. The member of the AU Parliamentary Caucus Against Corruption wants government to initiate a political finance bill that will put a stop to dubious funding of political activities.
It's one of the things that as an opposition member of parliament I should be able to do. I spent money, but I spent it on the party. I spent on the party because the party gave us less than 20,000 cedis for transportation. What about delegates who are coming, over 1,300 delegates who are coming there to eat? Who pays for it? The canopy. And then, transporting them.
But if you see how we're going about it, it's becoming a drain on the MPs. There were some MPs who were sharing money, for instance, and the Office of the Special Prosecutor is beginning to get interested in that.
Yeah, so I am one of the people who are against bribing delegates. But just as I've shared with you, I need to bring delegates to come and vote. They will not leave their home to come and vote. I think the party gave me less than 20,000, and I have to spend money in transporting them. I need to top up to bring them, and also provide them food, and provide canopy, and provide public address system. That money the party gave will not be enough, and so you need to find. And fortunately, I have brothers, colleagues, people who have supported me. I don't have that money anyway, but they supported me. I can tell you I did not spend so much, but something for the delegates to come and vote, I did that. So I will not say that I've not. Yes, I have supported a party to bring, because I'm the member of parliament and also being in opposition. I spent money, but not much.
What's your take on the decision by the special prosecutor to invite, for instance, politicians? They've even taken notice of what the former President John Mahama has done, his decision to give 40 Ghana cedis to delegates. That's bribery, is it?
It's not bribery. It's not bribery. If the party cannot support, and he decided, well, he wants the vote of delegates to come and vote for him, and he did not give it to the individual delegate. He gave it to the party, just as I've just mentioned. I gave the money to the constituency executives that go and get, Metro Mass transport, get food for them. And the same thing John Mahama did. He did not give it to the individual, he gave it to the party. So I augmented 20,000 that the party brought. If you multiply my own of John Mahama's own was about 50 something, and we spent close to about 200,000. And so John, he says as the former president, did not give 40 Ghana cedis to individual, but he gave it to the party. That should be clear. So it's just to support the party in a way.
So no need for the special prosecutor to protest.
he can go into it. I mean, there's nothing wrong of him going into it, just as he's doing it for us, he should do it for the other party, because we've just seen a fleet of pickups line up and well branded with Baumia on it, Dr. Peaches on it. What about that one? I mean, where did he get the money from? All these things should be also be taken care of. I'm a member of the African Parliamentarians Network Against Corruption, a board member of the ECOWAS sub-region, and therefore I am interested in people, not bribing delegates before voting for them. I'm so much interested.
Why not pass laws in Parliament? Because you are MPs, you suffer at the base. Why not just pass a law to end that?
We are trying to change the constitution, where the constitution will allow for political party funding. And so that has not come yet. We're waiting for the executive to bring a bill for us to have political party funding bill. That will help all political parties. Government will fund all political parties, and this thing will be a thing of the past.
Okay, let's wrap up then. I'll take the final comments from you, Honorable. As we wrap up, what message do you have for our viewers in Ghana?
So that was from Nigeria, where Blessed Sugar is for us. That's what that interaction came from. So what exactly should your concern be about the vehicles? Well, Adam Senanu, coach of the Citizen Movement Against Corruption, has something to say. Before that, let's get the facts from the source. Kofi Tonto is campaign team member for Dr. Baumia. Hello, Mr. Tonto. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Now, these pickup vehicles that have the image of Dr. Baumia on them, where are they from? Who produced them, and where were they heading to? Do you know anything about that?
Okay, well, a very good evening to you and to your viewers. And thank you for giving us the opportunity to explain ourselves on this issue. There's been quite a number of misinformation out there. So I would like to use the platform to clarify a few misinformation. So for example, there is the misinformation that there are about 300 pickups. It's not true. There are just 6 pickups. And there are also misinformation that we use the IMF money to buy the pickups. Obviously, that's quite laughable. It can't be possible. It's not true. The pickups were cars that were donated by persons who believe in the cause. So the approach we've adopted is what we call an optimized approach, where we've done several designs for cars, for buses, for T-shirts, and other merchandises that are responsive. By responsive meaning whatever shape or form that you adapt it or you change it is able to adapt and apply accordingly. So what happens is, if Kofi Tonto says that I want to contribute 300 T-shirts of this type, this quality, we just send you, if you want to do polo shirts, we'll send you the polo shirts design and give you all the other requirements that are associated. And then you go off to print those T-shirts and you donate it. That was precisely what transpired. A few individuals who are volunteers who believe in the cause reached out and said they want to support the campaign with some vehicles. So they told us what vehicle they needed. We give them the design. There was a pickup. We gave them the design. And then they went off to do their design. That's it. If anyone who wants to, some people may say, okay, you know what? Let's say for this activity, we want to rent a bus for 6 months or whatever to support the cause. We may very well give you the design. You brand the bus. Once you are done, you give it back to the owner. That's simply what transpired.
So is that the case in this situation? Is it that these persons you refer to got the vehicles for the Dr. Baumia campaign team on a loan? Did they give it as a gift? Do you personally, as a campaign team, know who these people are and what their interest is in supporting your campaign?
Yeah, so of course we know who the people are, except that there are people who make donations and wouldn't want to put their names out there. There are individuals, there are businessmen and persons. The law is clear. Once the person is a Ghanaian and can support, the law allows it. So there are individuals who support it. If they choose to want their names out there, they will definitely do that. In this instance, they gave us the vehicles to support the cause. We gave them the designs, and then they did the branding and put it out. There are some who may say that after the campaign, you can keep the vehicle. There are some who may say that after the campaign, would like to take it back.
So as of now, you don't know if this is a gift or it's been loaned out to the team. You can't tell us.
As now, what is important to us is we need resources to run the campaign in the most moderate and humble way possible. These are individuals who've come out and said, we have vehicles that we want to donate to the cause. They may very well say that we want to give it to you, and later on change their mind. They may very well say that we are donating.
But what have they told you now? You're able to tell us, you know who these people are, and they requested an image to brand a vehicle. You're able, and my question is specific. Is it that you don't know as we speak now if this is just a gift or it's a loan to the team?
As it stands now, they've given it to us as a gift to support the campaign.
So where are the vehicles now as we speak?
Oh, they are being transported to other parts of the country. I know one will go to Wa and other parts of the country. Yeah, so they won't sit in one place. They'll be transported to parts of the country. Yeah.
And in the general conversation of political party financing, these people you say who've donated to the Dr. Bawumia campaign, do you know if they're clean business people, or I can just get up as an individual and say, I'm going to support the campaign team, and you readily accept any gift because I believe in your cause? What do you do in the background checks of these people? Are they regular taxpayers? Are they people who are likely going to expect or demand some returns if your candidate is able to secure the seat as president? I mean, do you do any background checks on these people? Or I can just contact you and say, I have a gift for you, and you take it?
No. I don't think we do free-for-all campaign where any individual will wake up and say that we are giving you a vehicle. We certainly do some background checks to make sure that the persons who are donating to the campaign are genuine people who have exhibited publicly and without any cause to worry that they are doing genuine business. Don't forget that the donations that are coming come in different forms. Some may even be very soon, some may even be sending 40 CDs, 20 CDs, 10 CDs. So they come in different forms. In that instance where we've asked people to maybe donate through, for example, a short code, we may not be able to ascertain every person's background, but persons who are bringing quantifiable and verifiable items, of course, will do the due diligence to make sure these are credible persons who are contributing to the cause. We have a duty to the people of this republic to not only rule and govern, but before you even come into government, you have a duty to make sure that you are engaging the right people so as to avoid the very issue that you mentioned, that people are not investing or using political parties' vehicles of investment, where they put in X amount, and then once you come into power, they expect Y amount. No, there ought to be persons who are genuinely interested in the campaign and want to support it for a good cause. That is what the Vice President believes in.
Finally, Kofi, for purposes of accountability, we've been hosting politicians over the time, asking them how much did you spend on your campaign, whether they were forms of gifts or your personal investment, and they're not able to tell us. We're hoping the narrative will change. These pickup vehicles, cost of purchasing the vehicles and branding, how much did it cost these people to give you these gifts?
I wouldn't know. So, for example,
but why wouldn't you care to ask? Why wouldn't you care to ask?
Why wouldn't we care to? No, you are asking me how much. I wouldn't know as I sit here how much it costs a person to buy one vehicle. We are more than happy to be transparent and share whatever details that are available to us.
But you're
I'm
able to
telling you
share
that-
every detail about it, and I'm thinking that it should be one of the first things that I mean should come to mind if somebody is giving you a gift. Obviously, also because of all the strings attached to political party financing. You would want to know at the end of your campaign, okay, so and so gave me this, it cost them this much, it cost this person that much, it cost me this much. In entirety, this is how much I spent on my campaign. And I'm asking you, didn't it interest you to know?
No. I'm saying that we fully agree with transparency of campaign financing.
So you didn't ask these people? You didn't ask them?
No, I'm saying that. No. I'm not saying we didn't. I'm saying that as I stand here and sit here right now, I don't have it readily available. We'll be more than happy to invite you guys over to ask more questions if you deem it appropriate. I won't be able to give you the exact figure per person. That's what I'm saying. I'll be more than happy to share whatever information with you. Look, Dr. Mumia believes very firmly in transparency, and we support what you are asking. These are genuine questions. Political parties must be able to come out and clearly state how they raise their funds. You know, before I came on, I was listening to the interview your journalist was doing in Nigeria to some, I think, Ho MP or something like that. And they were asking similar questions. For example, President Mahama gave out 40 cedis for 300,000 people. That's 12 million Ghana cedis. You know, looking at the recent exchange rate, that's over $1 million. The question is, it would be good for all Ghanaians to know where he got the money from. You know, was it donations? If donations, from who? So yes, we stand for transparency, and we stand for asking the requisite questions to ensure that bad people are not hiding politicians to invest money and reap it later. I fully agree with you.
All right, Kofi. So I mean, I just want to say here on record that I would reach out to you again, and I would like you to help us with the cost of the gift, and also because you know you have to pay taxes on gifts, right? So we would like to know the cost of that gift. And I don't think that it's good enough for us to be, for lack of a better expression, hiding these people who openly want to support somebody for purposes of transparency. So if I know it is person A or person B, or businessman A or businessman B who sponsored Dr. Bawumia's campaign, for example, and much later in life we see certain contracts go in a certain way, we are able to draw the lines and, you know, make some inferences. So I'm just saying to you right here on the pulse that I'll reach out to you again, Kofi Tonto, for a response on these specific questions that you don't have ready answers for.
I'm also saying that I don't disagree with you.
Right.
But it's also a fact that it isn't new. This campaign or our campaign or any other campaign isn't the first time someone has donated. It's replete within our society.
I know it happens, but we are trying to change the narrative. We are trying to make things better. Both your candidate and that for the opposition party have all spoken about political party financing and how we must do a better job at it, Kofi. I appreciate your time here this afternoon.
I'm not disagreeing. So I'm saying that when you come and we finish, we'll go to President Mahama's house and also assess where he got the 12 million CDs from, and all the other people. Kita, for example, Henry said he raised $1.4 million to run his campaign. We'll be happy for Joy FM to also accompany us, so we can call President Mahama, we can call the Kita.
Oh, Kofi, so now you're going to do the calling and we will be witnesses. Is that the case?
No.
You said we should accompany you, so you are going to do the calling. I get your point. Let's not play Kofi. You are the one I'm talking to now. Let's not play the equalization game. You're the one I'm talking to now. So I appreciate your time, Kofi. Let's not drag this further, but we'll have a conversation another time.
You are very open.
Kofi is with the Dr. Bawumia campaign team, and he was here to answer some questions on some vehicles that were seen on social media. He's given us some clarity as to the number of the vehicles, and he says they were gifts. I tried to probe further, but he doesn't have ready answers, and that's what I said I was going to come for and he went on that equalization game. So that's it. But we're still on elections. Winneba High Court has ordered the 2020 parliamentary candidate for the NDC, James Kofi Annan, to unreservedly apologize to the MP for Efutu and Deputy Majority Leader Alexander Afenyo-Marking for defaming him. Mr. Kofi Annan, in a press conference, accused the MP, who was then parliamentary candidate of the NPP, that he was behind a scheme of 100,000 cedi that was maliciously deposited into his bank account to incriminate him. The MP sued him, and the court has ordered for a retraction and an apology over the claim. All right, so this was sent to news outlets, retraction of defamatory statement and apology to Mr. Alexander Afenyo-Marking. On 20th March 2020, Mr. Alexander Afenyo-Marking brought a case of defamation against me, as James Kofi Annan, in the Winneba District Court. I had then alluded in a press conference that I suspected him of being behind a scheme of 100,000 cedi that was maliciously deposited into my bank account to incriminate me. The import of his case was that by authoring the said statement, I had defamed him in the minds of right-thinking people. On the 28th day of August 2020, the Winneba District Court, presided over by His Worship Isaac Ohenepa Kufuor, as he then was, entered a judgment in favor of Mr. Alexander Afenyo-Marking. In the view of the court, the statement I made was defamatory of Mr. Alexander Afenyo-Marking. The court subsequently made the following orders: that I should publish on Joy TV, Adum TV, UTV, and relevant online media portals a retraction of the publication, and to render an unqualified apology to the plaintiff. That, two, I should pay damages and costs of 25,000 cedis. In fulfillment of the above order, one, I wrote to the media houses involved to publish retraction and apology. He talks about only one media house carrying the apology and instruction. In the meantime, I have already paid the damages and cost in full to the plaintiff in fulfillment of the above order. Two, subsequently, Mr. Alexander Afenyo-Marking brought an application to the Winneba High Court asking the court to commit me to prison for failing to carry out the orders. The Winneba High Court on Tuesday gave orders, that's Tuesday, May 17, 2023, just this Tuesday, gave orders that I render unqualified apology to Mr. Alexander Afenyo-Marking within 8 days. Now the unqualified apology and retraction. To further demonstrate my commitment and respect for the orders of the High Court, Winneba, dated 17th May 2023, and to show sincerity in my apology and retraction, I hereby submit for publication on your network a retraction of the full statement and an apology in the following terms. One, I, James Kofi Annan, state that the statement I authored, which you published on 17th March 2020 on your network, was without basis. Two, that a statement I made that I suspected him, Mr. Alexander Afenyo-Marking, in a 100,000 cedi scheme to incriminate me, as mentioned in the said press statement, had no evidence whatsoever, and that I had no reason to make those comments. Three, that I should never have made the statements about Mr. Alexander Afenyo-Marking. Four, that I sincerely render an unqualified apology to Mr. Alexander Afenyo-Marking for any inconvenience the said statement I authored may have caused his person and or his reputation or his associates. Five, that I retract the statement I made in its entirety without any reservation. Six, that the above retraction and apology is made by me without any reservation. And that's signed by James Kofi Annan. You're watching The Pulse with me, Bernice Abu-Baidoo Lansah. When we return by popular request, we bring you back that story on the craze of tattooing that appears to be catching on with a lot of young Ghanaian people. So do stay for that. There's more on that on our social media page on Facebook and on YouTube. You can catch the full feature there. That's it for this edition of The Pulse. I've been holding it down for your regular Blessed Sugar. Thank you so much for your company. Up next is Business Live. Let me say thank you to Doue_Ghana, DOUE_GHANA. You can find them on Instagram for my beautiful dress. I'm Bernice Abu-Baidoo Lansah. To stay with us, we are your most credible news source. Good evening.